let's go. You guys ready? Ready? How are my balcony people doing? You guys good up there? Okay, that was weak. Let's try it again. Balcony people, you good up there? Yeah, that was much better. Okay, great. Hey, a couple things. I know I don't want to just say all the announcements again, but 21 Days of Prayer, tomorrow, 6 a.m. It's a game changer. I would love to have you join us online. So that'll be on Facebook, social media. We'll post all the links to that. And then I want to personally invite you to meet City Hope tonight. So at 4 o'clock, if we've never met, if you'd like to get plugged into the church, if you'd like to learn more about what we do here, if you'd like to get involved anyway, or you're just curious about what happens, or you just want to hang out, let's do that, okay? 4 o'clock, to come in the main entrance and someone will show you where to go. Also, I want to say hi to everybody watching online. Give our online people a hand, including my beautiful wife, and including my parents and kids. Anyway, everybody's traveling. Everybody's Pastor Nicole. Anyway, so everybody gone today. You're here, though. I like you guys. All right, so you guys remember a few years ago, and I say a few years ago, I'm getting old. You realize, like, when you get old, you're like, I think it was just like 2 years ago. And you're like, that was 18 years ago. But do you guys remember just a few years ago when Kevin Durant won the MVP of the NBA, and he did that thank you speech? And he got emotional and said his mom was the real MVP. Mom, you're the real MVP. You guys remember that? It was cool, you know. Actually, that's why if people say, well, you know, you're the real MVP, that's where it came from. Kevin Durant got up, talked about his mom being the real MVP. It was a really cool moment to give honor to someone who had encouraged him and had been there all along. You see this at award shows. You know, I don't really watch that stuff, but if you watch like the award shows, people always get up and like, I just want to thank God for this, you know, award, and I want to thank, and then they go on to like my manager and my da-da-da, and there's always this list of people that, you know, you've never really heard of, but there's always someone who has helped that person get to where they are now. Anytime you see someone who has been successful or doing something significant, you have to know they didn't get there alone, right? There's always people behind the scenes. There's teachers and parents and coaches and moms and dads and youth pastors and bosses and mentors. So there's always someone behind the scene. Although history might remember the person on the stage, the truth is there's someone behind the scenes that is helping that person get to where they are and become who they are. Any significant leader, anyone who's done something, has someone behind the scenes. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most underrated people in the Bible. So we're going to spend 4 weeks in this series called Underrated. I want to introduce you to 4 people who, in my opinion, are very underrated in the Bible. They don't get talked about enough. Maybe they're not really highlighted. You know, maybe they have just like a little bitty story or their name's mentioned a couple times. Today I want to talk about somebody who I believe is underrated. His name is Barnabas. Everybody say Barnabas. Not to be confused with Barabbas. Barabbas was one of the guys anyway, so not Barabbas, it's Barnabas, okay? So Barnabas, we first meet this guy named Barnabas in Acts chapter 4, okay? So to set this up, the church was brand new. The day of Pentecost had just happened. God's people were now filled with his spirit. Acts 2 happened, and so thousands of people, Jews, are converted to followers of Jesus now, and they're there on the Temple Mount, and they go out and they start a church, and so there's all these people now who are followers of Jesus, and they're trying to like just start a church. Like, how do we do this now? Okay, Jesus left, he's gone, and now we're left behind to be his followers. Now what do we do? And all they knew is that they had the Great Commission, go and make disciples, baptize people, right? And so that was the Great Commission that they had. So what do we do with all of that? So they're just trying to figure it out in Acts chapter 4. And it says this in Acts chapter 4, all the believers were united in heart and mind. This is important, by the way. This is not what the message is about, but it's important to have unity. Anytime you see churches, or really anything, anytime you see churches, though, specifically have, you know, conflict and division, that's not a good thing, right? You need to have unity. So these believers, they were united in their heart. They were all going for the same thing, united in their mind. They all had kind of the same thoughts. And it says, and they felt that what they owned was not their own. This is huge. All these followers of Jesus, they looked at the things that they had, and they said, this stuff that we have, the possessions, the land, the homes, the cars, they didn't have cars then, the donkeys, all those things. Like all the stuff that we have is not actually ours. And again, this is not what the message is about today, but I think we just need to understand more of that everything we have is not actually ours. I just talked about it with the kids, but that home that you own, it's not actually yours, it's God's. He's just letting you have it for a while, You're like, well, I worked for it. Well, he gave you the ability to work, and he gave you the job, and he's given you everything, And so, like that car you have, everything you have, it's actually God's. So just having that understanding that we are just stewards of what God has given us on this planet, right? So this is what they felt. They felt that what they owned was not theirs to actually own, so they shared everything they had. This is where generosity comes from. The heart of generosity, and one of our core values here is to be generous, to be open-handed. The heart of that is to understand that this actually isn't mine. It's mine to manage, and I'm going to have to give an account for that someday, but it's not actually mine. It says this, that they shared everything they had. Because they had this understanding, they shared, they were generous. The apostles testified powerfully to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's great blessing was upon them all. They had this blessing of God on their ministry. There were no needy people among them because those who owned land or houses would sell them. That's crazy, right? There's people in need and they're like, okay, yeah, I got you. Let me sell my house, right? Imagine if I got up here today and was like, hey guys, we need you to sell your houses. Any equity that you got, just go ahead and give it to us, right? And we're gonna give it away. You'd be like, see ya, I'm out, right? I'm going to a different church. But that's what they were doing. I'm not asking that, by the way, but if you want to, we can talk about it. But so they literally sold land that they had. Like, we don't need all this land. What are we gonna do with this? We don't need all this money. We don't need all these houses. So they actually shared it and they put it in a pot. They gave it to the church. So there were no needy people among them because those who owned houses or land would sell them and bring the money to the apostles to give to those in need. Now check this out. For instance, there was Joseph. Everybody say Joseph. This dude named Joseph. One of the apostles that they nicknamed Barnabas. So you hear the name Barnabas, not actually his real name. It's a nickname. Everybody loves a good nickname, right? Always wanted a nickname. Tried to give myself one time, didn't work out, okay? So still waiting for one if you guys got one. All right, so his nickname was Barnabas. Here's what Barnabas means. Barnabas means son of encouragement. Not son of something else, son of encouragement, okay? Son of encouragement. So he was an encourager. He was from the tribe of Levi and came to from the island of Cyprus. Here's what Barnabas did. He sold a field he owned and brought the money to the apostles. Barnabas. His name is mentioned 30 times in the Bible, in the New Testament, mostly Acts. We don't know much about him. We know that he was from Cyprus. He was a Levite. And we know that he was an encourager, because that was his nickname, son of encouragement. He was an encourager. He never wrote a book of the Bible. He never performed a miracle that we know of. He never became a famous apostle, but I could argue that much of the New Testament that you have today is accredited to this man. I would say that much of who we are as a church, like the church, the corporate church, as followers of Jesus, and much of the scriptures that we have today is due to this one man who was named Joseph, who had a cool nickname, Barnabas. Christianity would look different without Barnabas. We may not have the Bible we have. We may not have the writings of the Apostle Paul without Barnabas. And it's not because he stood in the spotlight, it's because he spent his life helping other people step into their calling. He was not so much worried about being the center of attention. I'll say it this way for some of you kids. He didn't care about the followers, he helped other people get followers, right? He didn't care about the comment count on his photos. He was worried about how can I help someone else to become who God's called them to be. And so because of that, God used him in an incredible way. He was an encourager. He gave people courage. That's what encouragement means. It means to give someone courage. When you encourage someone, you're giving them strength. You're giving them courage. Now, here's why this matters here today. Here's why I want to talk about Barnabas. Because we live in a world that is not good at giving people courage. We live in a world that's good at taking courage away from people, okay? We live in a world that is really good at stealing the courage from people, discouraging. Think about it. Social media, right? Like, for every one encouraging thing you see, you will see 1,000 discouraging things. I'll say it this way. For every one positive thing, you will see a critic. There's some critics out there, aren't there? You'll see a critic. There's all the critics. And when someone is critical, what are they doing? They are taking courage away from someone. And you can be like, well, I don't care, man. My critics are fuel for me. You can say all that kind of dumb stuff, whatever, you know? But the truth is, at some level, whenever we hear criticism, it steals courage. We live in a world that is highly critical, and it takes courage away. Social media, politics, sports talk, news radio, even comedy, what it does is it's taking courage away from people. It's discouraging. It's stealing courage. And the loudest voices in our culture are usually the most critical. The loudest voices in our world are the ones who are most critical. You can see it on social media. Someone can make a nice post about a restaurant. I went to this restaurant. I had a great experience. You get 2 thumbs up and one person say, me too. You can go on social media and say, I went to this restaurant. You will never believe what happened, right? Like, I went on there and they messed up my food and they overcharged and they looked at me like this, and you'll see 1,000 people get on there. I can't believe that. You should shut them down. They should be canceled. You know, all the comments. Everybody loves to gang up on that. We live in a critical world. And when there's criticism, what it does is it steals courage. It's discouraging. Everybody has an opinion. I was talking with someone a few weeks ago about what I do, and they're like, oh, you have a terrible job. I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And here's what he said, and this was a guy who was super successful. He said, nobody wants to be a leader anymore. He said, who would want to be a leader in today's climate? Because it doesn't matter what you do as a leader. And there's lots of leaders in this room, and you know what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what you do as a leader, you're going to be wrong. There's going to be someone who is critical of the decision you make. And that's the hardest part about being a leader, is just simply making decisions. The other day I was reading this article, and the CEO said, the toughest things for me, the hardest part about being a CEO is not to have like the mental capacity to make tough decisions. The hardest part about being a CEO is to have a spine and make tough decisions, right? Because you know there's gonna be criticism. Everybody knows what's wrong about everything, right? Everybody knows what's wrong about everything. Politics, just open up the can of worms and everybody's got it figured out, right? Religion, like everybody's got it figured out. Everybody knows what's wrong with everything. And we talk about it and we rehearse it and we rehash it. There is a critical spirit in our culture. There's a critical spirit in our culture that's prevalent. And here's why I'm telling you this. I can say all that, and you're like, yeah, I get that. I see it. I see it on the news. I see it on social media. This side's critical of this side, and everybody's fighting. There's a critical spirit, and it is a spirit, by the way. There's a critical spirit. Here's why I'm telling you this today. If we're not careful, that critical spirit will get into our spirit. And if we're not careful, we will start to become more like the world than like Barnabas. If we're not careful, that critical spirit will start to seep into our heart, into our homes, into our churches, into our families, into our children, into our workplace. We have to be careful of it. Critical. We criticize everything. We criticize people. We criticize leaders, kids, coworkers, bosses, teachers. And we do it a lot through sarcasm, right? We're critical through sarcasm. Now, I love humor. I love making jokes. And I can appreciate sarcasm. But here's the thing. If sarcasm, and by the word sarcasm, the Greek word is sarcasmo, and what it really means is to rip flesh. So when somebody's like, I'm just being a little sarcastic, well, you're ripping flesh. That's what you're doing. You good with that? No? That's what they did to Jesus. Just ripping a little flesh here. Um, sarcasm, if it becomes the primary language of our homes, our workplace, our family, our churches, eventually our homes, families, churches, workplace become places where people just survive instead of thrive. So we got to be careful about that, right? Every conversation, every interaction, everything we do in life is either going to give people courage or it's going to take people's courage away. Everything we do in life is either going to leave you feeling stronger and more courageous or weaker, like you don't want to take on the world. Our words and actions are either stealing courage or it's giving courage. Think about your last conversation, maybe out in the foyer or in the car on the way here. Did the person leave feeling more courageous? Did they leave feeling stronger? Did they leave feeling less courageous? Did your spouse leave feeling encouraged or discouraged? Did your kids walk away feeling bigger or smaller? Did your employees leave believing they can do it or wondering if they have a job or wondering what kind of leader you are? Every interaction leaves a mark. The question is, what kind of mark are we having on people? We live in a critical culture, so today Barnabas can teach us a few things. So Barnabas, back to Acts, it says that he was a Levite. That means that basically he was from a family of worship leaders, just to kind of say it really easily. He's from a family of worship leaders. What's interesting about the Levites is they didn't get land allotted to them like the rest of the Jewish people did. So the fact that he had land to sell meant that he had something that was really valuable. He either inherited or he had to work really, really hard for it. And he gave up something that was either inherited from his family or he worked really, really hard for it to support the church. You see what kind of person this is. 30 times in the Bible, in the New Testament, he's mentioned. And so we see him over and over again encouraging. When the early church needed someone trustworthy to investigate what God was doing in Antioch, they sent Barnabas. When the early church needed some resources, money, he sold his land and gave it to the church. When Paul was rejected and nobody trusted him, Barnabas stepped in and encouraged. When the church in Antioch exploded with new believers, Barnabas didn't try to do it alone. He went looking for Saul. We'll talk about that in a minute. When John Mark failed and everyone else was ready to move on, Barnabas gave him a second chance. Over and over again, we see Barnabas being an encourager. He's the son of encouragement, okay? In Acts 11, there are lots of people coming to faith in Christ in a city called Antioch. And they needed someone to go there and to lead. So this church just kind of started to explode in Antioch. They needed someone to go there to be the pastor, to be the leader. And look what happens in Acts 11. It says, news of this new church reached the church in Jerusalem. So they sent Barnabas to Antioch. When he arrived and saw that what the grace of God had done, he was glad and he encouraged. Here it is. He encouraged them to remain true to the Lord with all their hearts. When people encountered Barnabas, they gained courage. When people encountered Barnabas, they got stronger. Barnabas today is reminding me, and I need reminded of this. When I'm talking about things like sarcasm and when I'm talking about, like having something to say about people, I am talking to myself, okay? I'm being reminded today, and I hope that you can be reminded as well, that every interaction, and here's your big idea, every interaction with others either steals their courage or gives them courage. Every interaction is taking courage away from them or it's giving them courage. Every interaction. When people walk away, they're either stronger or weaker. I was thinking about this last night. We were watching, it was just me and Dee, our 8-year-old. We were home alone, and so let's watch Superman. Here's why we watched Superman, by the way. We were on our way back from Kentucky, and we were driving up from south, and we stopped in Metropolis, Illinois. Anybody ever been there? Home of Superman, right? And so we saw the Superman statue, and he's like, is this where Superman's really from? And I'm like, dude, I'm your dad, and I can't lie to you. Yes. He is from here. He's from here. This is his hometown. And so this is funny. We're watching Superman, and in the movie, Metropolis is like New York City. It's like a huge city. And he's like, it didn't look like that. I'm like, D, don't be dumb. Listen, it didn't look like that because we didn't go downtown. We were on the outskirts of town. So of course it didn't look like that. You mean Superman's real? I'm like, well, he has a hometown. He couldn't be, could he be real if he didn't have a hometown? Anyway, so currently, he believes Superman's real. So we're watching Superman. And the latest one that came out last year, Superman's locked in this little cage with some guy, and I'm kind of like half watching the movie, right? But it's some guy, and the guy turns his hand into kryptonite, and Superman gets like real weak, and he's like almost dead, and then the guy makes like some sort of ball of energy that's like the sun, and if you know about Superman, the sun gives Superman energy, right? And so all of a sudden he's starting to get stronger, and so there's this moment where it's kryptonite, and he's like on the floor about to die. Then there's this other moment where he's like strong enough, and he burst out of the thing because he's got his strength back, and all I could think about is that's encouragement, right? There's some times where we leave people just laying on the floor like miserable, like I can't make it anymore, but that's discouragement. But we can also leave people like ready to just fly through a wall, ready to be strong, ready to take on the world, ready to be who God's called them to be. And we have the ability to do that in others in the same way that Barnabas did it in so many people. How do we do that? Number one, we give others courage when we see their potential. We give others courage when we see their potential, when we see what they could be. So Paul wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Great apostle. He started churches and he reached so many people in areas and tribes and nations with the gospel. He pushed the gospel forward, but he didn't start out that way. Before he was Paul, he was a man named Saul. Saul was a Christian killer. He stood by and he ordered the execution of Christians, right? But if you know the story, he had an encounter with Jesus on this road called the road to Damascus. He gave his life to Jesus. All of a sudden, he's like, okay, I'm switching sides. Now I was a Christian killer. Now I'm going to become a follower of Jesus, and I want to go tell everybody about Jesus. Well, as you can imagine, people were apprehensive. Maybe he's just trying to invade our thing here. Maybe he's just trying to get it inside track. Look at this in Acts chapter 9. When Paul came to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples. So God says, Jesus says, you were Saul, now you're Paul. Okay, changed his name. So when you're like, it's two different people, same person, two different names. When Paul came to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him because he'd been killing Christians, right? They're afraid of him, not believing that he was really a disciple. But Barnabas, everybody say, but Barnabas. Look, but Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. He told them how Saul on his journey had seen the Lord and that the Lord had spoken to him, and how in Damascus he had preached fearlessly the name of Jesus. Barnabas saw something in Saul, now Paul, that no one else saw. He saw potential. When everyone else was afraid and everyone else said, oh, I know his past. Everyone else said, I know who he used to be. There had to be a man who stepped up and spoke up for him and said, I know what you see. I know that you see the past, but I see potential. I know that you see who you used to be, but let's talk about who God is creating him to be. For some of us, all we see is people's past. For some of us, listen, for some of you, all you see is your past. All you think about is your past and who you used to be, and you're thinking, well, God could never use me, and so you live a discouraged life. You feel weak and sluggish because you have no courage, and then you're also stealing the courage from others because all you can think about is who they used to be or what they did or maybe even what they're doing right now. You can't see the potential in front of you. Can I encourage you to not be a critic? Can I encourage you to not be the person who just points out what everybody's done wrong? Can I encourage you to be the kind of person who sees potential in people? Barnabas saw what grace could do before grace had fully done it. Barnabas saw what grace could do before grace had fully done it. I want to encourage you to see in people what grace can do before grace fully does it. See what grace can do, what God can do before he actually does it, because that's how Jesus sees us. Critics see who people have been. Encouragers see who God is making them. Maybe you've seen this, like I don't know if you've ever restored an old house. Seen someone who has? Someone who has an eye for that, you can walk, you'll see the house, you're like, man, it's broken, it's busted, everything's falling down, it's falling apart. And someone who has vision and can see potential can walk in and say, no, all you got to do is change this, and take this wall out, and you flip this, and this is going to be an incredible place. See people like that. Builders see potential, see people with potential. Now, this is hard for all of us, to see past people's past, to see what they can become. To not see what is right in front of you right now, to see the potential of what they can be. Can I tell you, it's especially hard as parents. It's especially hard as parents. How do you encourage someone who's making bad decisions? How do you believe in someone who keeps disappointing you? See, here's the thing. Encouragement never ignores the sin. Encouragement never ignores what's right in front of you. Barnabas never ignored Saul's past, but encouragement simply refuses to let today's behavior become tomorrow's identity. I'm not going to allow the behavior today to be your identity tomorrow, right? So we correct behavior, but we never surrender belief in the person. I just want to encourage you, especially some of you parents. I want to encourage you to never surrender belief in your kids. Never surrender belief of who they can be and what God has for them. Maybe you see this right now, or you know what they've been up to, or you see the problems, you see the issues. Never surrender the belief of who they can become. Who do you need to stop making weaker by pointing out who they have been? And who do you need to start making stronger by pointing out who they can be? See the potential in people. See the potential in people, and then, number 2, speak life to them. We give others courage when we speak life to them and about them. Speak life to them and about them. The Bible says it's the power of life and death in the tongue. The words we say matter. The words we say are real. This is one of the hardest for me. I grew up in an environment. I grew up in a time, not really my home environment necessarily, but I grew up in a time and around friends. If someone did something wrong, you didn't go to them kindly and try to point it out. You made fun of them relentlessly until they figured it out, right? If they do something wrong and it's like, this is gonna be fun, and then you lay into them and you make fun of them and you berate them until they figure it out. A lot of us grew up in situations and environments like that, but that's not the right way to do it. Acts chapter 9, Barnabas took Paul and brought him to the apostles, and he told them, and he spoke. And he spoke life about him. He spoke life about who they can be. Barnabas didn't stay silent. He didn't silently believe in Saul. He spoke up, he advocated, he defended. He used his voice to open a door that no one else would open. Words matter. Your words matter. And here's why. Because your words will become someone else's inner voice. Think about the inner voices that you have in your life. The voices that you have in your head that say things to you all the time. They say things like, hey, you're worthless. You'll never succeed. You'll never make it. You'll always be like that. All those voices that all of us have to deal with. And I guarantee you, if you can think back and you can trace back, that voice came from someone else's mouth, right? That voice, those words came from someone else's mouth. I walked down that hall where the kids' wing is, and I had a teacher, a geometry teacher, that I'm not gonna say his name, and I want to so bad to bust him out. I had a geometry teacher, and he sarcastically called me hard-working Seth, because you know how much I cared about geometry? 0, right? Don't know geometry. I know this, though. Nothing. Don't care about it. So he called me hard-working Seth every day. Hey, look, there's hard-working Seth, right? And I'm down there, like, I remember when we tore that room out, I got a hammer, and I'm tearing down that wall, and I'm like, who's hard-working now? Just like, come after me, right? But you hear those words. But you can hear those words negative, or you can hear them positive. I'm gonna embarrass somebody today. Rhonda Rovenstein, Mama Rovi. Every Sunday, here's what she says. She gives me a hug, and she's like, there's my favorite preacher. She says, she'll give me a hug. She goes, she gives me a hug and she says, how's the best preacher in the world doing? I'm like, every Sunday, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who that is. It's not me. I'm not the best preacher in the world, not the best in town. I'm not even the best in this room, if I'm being honest, okay? And so, but guess what? Every time I see her, I'm just like, yeah, best in the world. Pretty stinking good. you know? Because the contrast of the two words, right? So I'll go down that hall and I'll be like, hard worker Seth, come out here, best preacher in the world. Like, your words matter. Choose your words wisely. I got to keep going. Choose your words wisely. Number 3, we give others courage when we share our influence. You have influence, and it's not your influence just to keep and to hold. It's your influence to share. When Barnabas went to Antioch, he saw that this church was growing like crazy, and he could have been the next mega church pastor, right? Antioch was growing like crazy. He's now the leader. He's now the pastor at Antioch. He could have been like the star of the show. But guess what he did? The Bible says in Acts 11, the first thing he did is he called Paul over and he said, Paul, I need your help. I want you to help me lead this. He gave influence away to someone. He believed in him. He spoke life about him. And then he gave his influence away. He could have kept it for himself. Kingdom people don't use people to build influence. They use influence to build people. Kingdom-minded people don't use people to build influence. They use influence to build people. Parents, your influence isn't just for leading your kids. It's for launching them. For launching them into the world. Bosses, your influence isn't just to build your career, it's to build people and to help them have a successful career and be successful in life. Leaders, success isn't measured by how many people follow you, it's measured by how many leaders you help create. This is opposite of the world. We live in a culture where it's all about you and your followers and your page and your thing, and our calling as followers of Jesus is to share our influence. Is to use it to build others, not use it to build something for ourselves. Are you sharing? Are you sharing your influence? We speak life. We see potential. We share influence. Then number 4, we just have to stay the course. Number 4, we give others courage when we refuse to give up on them. People will disappoint you. People will make mistakes. I will disappoint you. I will make mistakes. But just don't give up on people. Don't give up on people. One of the greatest attributes you can have is just someone who's loyal, who doesn't give up. We're just not going to give up. We give others courage when we refuse to give up on them. So in this story, there's a rift in the book of Acts. There's like this fight. It's church drama, okay? Church tea, as they call it. I don't think anybody actually calls it that. There was a rift in the book of Acts between Paul and John Mark. 3 of them, Paul, John Mark, Barnabas, were on a missionary journey together. John Mark got homesick, apparently, and bailed on him. In the middle of the journey, he's like, guys, there's no Wi-Fi here. I'm out. I'm going home. So he goes home. Paul was done with him. How dare he leave us? He was done with him. But there comes this point. There comes a point where they had to make some decisions. And Barnabas looked at Paul and said, I think John Mark needs to come with us. And Paul said, nope, he left us before. He's not coming with us. So Barnabas left and went with John Mark, and they went and did their own thing. Here's why I'm saying that. I'm saying that he never gave up on someone who gave up on them. John Mark had given up on them. Barnabas never gave up. He said, I still see potential. I'm going after him. I'm going to take him with me. And at the end of the day, they all made up, and they called, Paul called John Mark a great fellow, believer and someone who was loyal in the ministry, all those things. But he didn't give up on him. He didn't give up. He just kept believing. He kept believing in him. Sometimes the greatest courage you can give someone is refusing to give up on them. Now, yes, we set boundaries and we can have all those conversations, but in your heart, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on that person. There is someone in your life who if you simply won't give up on them, they're going to come to life. There's someone in your life, if you just simply don't give up on them. Keep in mind, our job isn't to fix people. We just keep giving them courage and keep believing in them. Our job is not to fix people. Only God can do that. Only the Holy Spirit. So maybe some of you're thinking about your kids right now. Parents even. Your job is not to fix them. Your job is to believe. Your job is to parent, discipline, all those things, but to believe in them and to give them courage. To believe in them, to give them courage, and don't give up. Here's a tough question for you. Who have you quietly given up on? Who's the person, if you're honest in your heart, you've given up on him? A friend, a spouse, a son or daughter, a coworker? Maybe God is asking you to believe one season longer than everybody else. I've intentionally not talked about something all morning. So Barnabas, even though that's his name, is not actually his name. His parents named him Joseph. But he was such an encourager, they called him Barnabas, son of encouragement. He so consistently put courage into other people, it became his identity. This was who he was, his identity, right? People stopped identifying him by his profession or his accomplishments or his personality or where he was from. He wasn't just Joseph from Cyprus. They didn't talk about where he was from or what he'd done or what he accomplished. All they wanted to talk about was what an encourager he was. They identified him not by what he had, but what he gave away. What if we became the kind of people that we were identified not by what kind of car we drive or what we do or how many followers we have or how good looking we are or how thin what if we were identified not by our clothes or fill in the blank? What if we are identified not by what we have, but by what we give away? By the encouragement, the courage we give other people. How do people feel when they leave you? Are they stronger, feeling courageous? Do they feel beat down? Do they feel worn out? Barnabas gave courage. And here's why he gave courage. Because he received courage. He received courage from Jesus. Jesus looked at fearful fishermen and he gave them courage. He looked at Peter after his failure and he gave him courage. He looked at doubting Thomas and he gave him courage. He looks at us today, not through the lens of our worst mistake, but through the lens of his grace. And today he wants to give you courage to face another day. He wants to give you courage to take a step in your faith. He wants to give you courage to start the business, to start the ministry, to do the thing, to make the tough decision. He wants to give you courage because he is with you. And when he's with you, don't try to get in his way. No one's against you, right? Who could be against you? The Lord is with you. He's with you. Would you bow your heads?